Welcome to this channel. Basically, on this channel, we do tutorials, hands-on tutorials for software developers that go through the technology of artificial intelligence or machine learning. It's for the developers that are actually in the field, just basically to exchange ideas. We don't assume that you know a lot or you don't know nothing. There are different levels of aptitude in the videos, so you pick the one that appeals to you, right? And then also on this channel at a later stage, also we have discussions, generalized discussions with professionals who are in the industry, not only professionals who are in software development, but also who are in business layers, who are in management layers, who are in software development, process management. So that we can get different perspectives as to what is happening in the industry. So that's in the future. At this point in this lab, we're talking hands-on, so you need to have Python on your laptop, you need to have a good spec, and you need to have basic understanding, what we call a working knowledge of Python. And if those things are ready for you, this is going to be a great video for you to enjoy, to start. It's for basically people that are starting to have, it's not for the experts, it's for people that are starting out in machine learning development or artificial intelligence software development. So yeah, you need to have a working knowledge of Python and a machine that has got a decent, it doesn't need to be amazing, but just a decent architecture, because we're not doing anything that's intense. So basically, we'll show you how to set up your virtual environment, either using the command line or using an IDE. In this case, we're using PyCharm. You can also use VS Code. And once you get that running, then you can appreciate the steps, because what we've done is we've chosen a repo that is step by step. In other words, what happens when you're building a voice assistant that is LLM based, which is this project. You basically have your voice, you speak, your voice gets converted into text, the text gets pushed into LLM, it gets out of the LLM as text again, that text gets converted into voice, and that's the voice that you hear. And what we are doing in this lab is that you actually get to run the code, understand the architecture, and then actually also get to actually click step by step. You click to record your voice, you click to push it into the LLM, you click to play what the LLM has responded with, so that you get a full understanding to say, aha, that's what's happening. In real time, in real cases, in the real use cases, it will actually be running quickly. You speak, it comes back, you speak, it comes back, you speak, it comes back. But I am very much a guy that wants you guys to understand in slow motion what's happening, so that when we then start doing the quick stuff, then you fully appreciate what's happening. So yeah, that's basically this lab. If you are a developer, you're going to enjoy it. If you're not a developer, still you're going to just enjoy it if you like to see nerds in action, right? So thank you. You must, as I said, you just need a working knowledge of Python. Let's get started. Thank you. Basically, what I do, the first step I'm going to take in order to start this demonstration of how to get this project running is go to the repo that is in the comments, that is in the description of the lab, and then once I'm on that page, which you can see on your screen, I get the URL of the repo. Then I go to my local command line, and I basically just git clone the repo, and that starts the process of bringing down the repo onto my local environment. Then I basically change my directory to that repo, and then I can start by just finding out my status to say what's the status of my repo. Everything is up to date. Then I can start playing with my pip install. Requirements. Okay. Basically, I need to set up my my virtual environment. What I would rather do though is just run my PyCharm, which is my IDE. So I'm just gonna run my PyCharm IDE, and that's a faster alternative for me. I can always just go through the virtual environment. So I'm just gonna navigate to where I've cloned my repo and then set up my virtual environment. So this is PyCharm. So in my PyCharm, which is a Python IDE that you can download, I go to my menu, my system menu. I go to settings, Python interpreter at the very top, and I'm just gonna choose Python 3.12, which is a very popular version. So by so doing, I've set up my virtual environment. I can then go into my requirements file and basically just set that up, and it starts downloading all the requirements that I have. Then the next thing that I'll just do is basically put in my API keys and get my solution running. So that's very quickly how I would get my environment, my local environment running in Python. Let me take you through the steps of setting up that virtual environment via the command line. So I'll go back to my command line and just basically follow what is on this step. I'll just basically, my first command would be to set up my virtual environment. So that's the command, and this is the folder that I would set up. For example purposes, I'll just call this Davison, and it will set up my Davison F. And right, if I go ls, you see that the folder has been set up, and then I would then activate that. So the command to set up is that I will just go, my path is Davison nth, basically Davison nth, like that. And that means you can see now my path here includes my virtual environment. So I'm now actually in my virtual environment, and I can start basically running my commands. Python version, and that's it. So I've basically set up the virtual environment both using the command line and using the Python charm. So I'm ready to run basically. So that's it. Thank you. Great. Now that you've set up the environment, now I'm going to run the application. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. The first step I'm going to take is I'm going to run the solution. And then while the solution is running, I'll be explaining the architecture to make sure that everything is time efficient. So basically, it's a slow motion, step-by-step illustration of what's happening when you're creating a automated voice assistant. Basically, the first step is obviously you are speaking. So I am going to activate the microphone and ask a question. What is a large language model? And that's the question. What is a large language model? Right. Then the next thing is, once you've got a voice, the next step is that I submit that into the large language model. And while the large language model is responding, I'm then going to explain the architecture. Basically, when you're starting with the voice capture right here, you capture the voice is then converted into text and is cleaned up, then it's pushed into the LLM. In the LLM, is processed according to the LLM architecture that we'll explain in later labs. Then out of the LLM comes text, which is the response, and the response is then converted to voice, and that's the voice then you then hear. So when you create an LLM that is connected to a voice assistant, basically these are the steps that are happening in slow motion. And this solution that I've got running right now is to illustrate step by step what is happening. In future modules, we'll actually run the final thing, and it will run quickly and it will have very little latency. It is almost going to be real time. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I decided to make it step by step. So if I go back to my large language model, I should be getting a response that I can then present to you, and that response is the same response that I can actually play as a voice, so to speak. It's still processing. As I said, this is a step-by-step thing, and it's very slow because the connection and also the spec of the machine is not really like factory standard. But I will get a response. And basically, if you go into the code in the meantime, you'll see that in my code, at the top I get the model, and the model basically has a temperature. Temperature means the accuracy of the model. Do I want it to be very precise as in mathematics, or do I want it to be a bit more creative as in text response? So I can set the temperature there. I've got it at 0.5, which is like a medium, because 00 is very accurate. I mean, very accurate. And then, or can I say less random? And then 1, which is the top of it, is to be creative and random, so to speak. And this is basically the number of tokens that I'm getting, and this is the name of the model. So basically in my code, that's what I'm doing at the very beginning. I load the model, load the API key, and then in my function, the agentic pipeline function, is where my steps are going. You can see I've put A, B, C. So A is the voice into text. That's the function that does voice into text. And then the B is the LLM response. That's pushing it into the LLM and getting a response back. And then the C is getting the text into voice, and then you then hear the voice. So these are basically the functions that you will see in the code that are doing those 3 steps. So basically my response is back, and the response I can actually play.
A large language model.
Basically that's the response that I am getting. So in a nutshell, this is the step-by-step that I thought would be a very great idea to show you step-by-step what is happening. I hope you appreciate the eloquence of it and the clarity of it. Thank you.